What's an incredibly American thing Americans don't realize is American? Universities in Europe are simply institutions of higher learning, nothing more. Americans would be surprised by the cultural differences when it comes to university education. There are no athletic teams, no Greek life, and no 30-foot climbing walls at universities in Europe. You come to school to learn and leave when your classes are over for the day. If you want to study, you can go to the library, but there is very little that a university offers outside of academia. I used to work in a call center that took calls from Americans and Canadians. I'd ask, "Where are you from? Canada or the US?" Canadians would say Canada, and Americans would say Texas or New York, etc. Never ever would they reply with their country name. I live in Amsterdam, and we have many Americans living here. When I meet one and ask him this question, my dirty pleasure is to say, "From the United States," after they answer with just their state name. Once completely caught me off guard when he said, Idaho. Never heard of this US state before. I asked if it was in Australia. Am American. When I moved to Australia, I was constantly asked 3 questions. 1. How do you pronounce aluminum? 2. How do you pronounce jaguar? 3. Are red Solo cups a real thing? In all the movies, whenever there is a house party, everyone has a red Solo cup. I was caught completely off guard by the Solo cup question. Ever since then, I've been very attentive to these damn red cups. They really are everywhere. Edit. Well, this blew the fuck up. Keep the questions coming. This is a fun read. It might just be me, but I do notice when you ask Americans on the internet where they're from, they reply with either a state or a city instead of their country. The thing is, it doesn't cause any confusion, since most people know most American states and at least the major cities. You don't often see an Indonesian person, for example, say they're from West Java, just that they're from Indonesia. Edit. 1. Thank you for the awards. 2. I'm not saying it's a bad thing, just an American one. I also don't think it's because of cultural variation or population. I'm Indian, and I've never seen anyone say that they're from Rajasthan or Kerala on a more global level. A lot of Indian states speak different languages, have different cuisines, and live on different terrains. I think it has more to do with the fact that people broadly know American states and the distinctions between them through movies and American news and politics. I also find that Americans often include where they were born. For example, I'm from Philly, but originally from Jersey. Edit. I understand that the US is big and has many different regions. I'm Canadian and find that Canadians typically don't answer that way, despite being very large. 100%. Small nuance. I don't think it's where you're born, but rather where you were raised. It makes a lot of sense, actually. I grew up in Miami, but have been living in NYC for a few years now. If I travel to Texas and someone asks me where I'm from, it feels wrong to say Miami, because I haven't lived there in 7 years, and it's changed a lot since I've been a resident. But at the same time, I can't really say I'm from NYC because I'm not a native New Yorker, and saying you're from NYC pretty much means you grew up there. So it makes sense to say both. I'm an American who moved to Germany, and people always say this like it's some weird thing we do, but whenever I get asked where I'm from and just say the US, the next question is always which state city, without fail, not including tax on prices displayed in stores, not having to ask for the bill. This was me today at a restaurant in Oslo. It felt rude to call the waitress over to ask for the bill. I'm American. It's curious. I'm European. And if someone gave me the bill without asking, I would think it's rude, because it feels like they're rushing me to leave. I'm American, and I asked for the bill at a restaurant in France before we were finished eating, because I'm aware of the need to ask for it, and we wanted to be able to get up and leave whenever we wanted, and not have to flag him down later. The restaurant was getting rather busy, and didn't want to bother him if he was preoccupied later. He was deeply offended and encouraged us that we were in no rush to leave, and then didn't bring us the bill, and refilled our waters, and tried to get us to stay. I'm sorry, random waiter. I didn't mean to offend you. Handing your credit card to a stranger, having them walk away, swipe it, then bring it back to like they didn't just put a down payment on a new house with it. When I first started working in hospitality, I had an American customer who just gave me their card. I took it to the register, paid the order with a swipe, and gave it back. I was told by my manager to never do that again, lol. Currently on my first proper trip to the US, and a few things stood out to me. Overall, great place. Restaurants by default will bring everyone cups of water, sometimes with ice. To pay the bill in the restaurant, they take my card and walk off. Then, they come back with a few extra receipts, and I can write down a tip, and they will change the amount they charged me later. I didn't even know this was a thing that places could do. I have notifications to check. The charges are correct just in case. Every toilet I've been to so far has been pretty clean, with little mess. The worst one was at the airport, and even that wasn't too bad. Although the very high water inside the toilet is weird, it hasn't been an issue yet. Some confusion about this. I'm mainly just talking about restaurants, shops. Don't think I've used public restrooms at any train station, just the airport. Streets go from dirty mess to clean and nice quickly. More homeless than I'm used to in London. Street food stands are pretty delicious. Pretty much all food stands in NYC seem to be halal, which is nice. Larger drink cans, portions. Mixed road qualities, but overall big roads and cars. Not a fan of the pedestrian crossings, because I just don't fully understand the symbols yet. I think I get the symbols now. It was just the red hand with the timer throwing me off. The timer should be with the white figure. Air conditioning everywhere, which is definitely required. Speeding on the highway. Literally, everyone is above the speed limit. We think we're missing something because everyone is above the speed limit. No shot would that happen in the UK? We have cameras everywhere. Edit. On mobile, so excuse shit spelling grammar. American here. When I studied abroad, I was smiling and friendly to strangers. In London, they looked like I wanted to steal something from them. Saw this with my American friends when I lived in Moscow. They walked around with this pleasant, anticipatory smile on their face, and people thought they were mentally challenged. I remember a Russian friend explaining to me that Americans just look like idiots, smiling for no reason all the time. Russians apparently smile when they have something to smile about. I read a paper that basically says it is because of our high immigrant past. Apparently, when people with diverse languages, who cannot understand each other verbally all the time, are in close quarters with each other, they use physical cues, such as constant smiling, to communicate. LOL. I studied in France when I was in college and lived with a family for a year. Awesome people, but the dad made no secret of his disdain for Americans. I guess it was the mom who must have convinced him to have Americans board with them because he never seemed too pleased about it. Anyway, one of my favorite quotes from Jacqu was, "You stupid Americans. Always walking around smiling, like a bunch of goddamn idiots." The mom started screaming at him for being rude when he said that to us. Another American was boarding as well, but we thought it was hilarious and made it a point to walk around the house smiling and greeting him with an effusive "Bonjour, monsieur" every day. I think we did win him over, eventually. R.I.P. Jacqu. May you have eventually found love for Americans in your heart. Edit. No, we did not kill Jacqu, for those who are asking. This happened back in 1992. My roommate, who is now one of my closest friends, and I kept in touch with the family for years after our time studying there. Sadly, Jacques passed of old age about 7 years ago, pledging allegiance to the flag or singing the national anthem outside of special events. I went to see a kids' talent show in a small rural town. There were maybe 8 acts and 30 people watching, and they all stood and pledged allegiance to the flag and sang the national anthem beforehand. It was extremely strange. Americans have a particular brand of plucky, cheerful tenacity that I find to be one of their most charming traits. It can mean that they seem a bit full-on, loud, or over-exuberant, but I have on the whole found them to be warm and inviting people. I think the tenacity might be why there's a begrudging fondness from US Brits, and I think it's particularly flavored by the wartime reception of World War II. Brits are also tenacious, but in a more grumpy, stubborn way. If Americans are like, "Yay, we can do the things, I believe in you, let's do it," then Brits are like, "Well, I better bloody do the things out of spite. I'll complain the whole time, but I'll show you that I can bloody well do the things too." But ultimately, the things get done. And I think Brits appreciate that. So we're all like, "Well, Yank, you might be a bit bonkers, but you get results. You're allowed in my pub," thanking military people for their service. Reminded me of a joke I heard. An old man walks into a grocery store, and when checking out, he asks if he could have a discount because he fought in World War II. The cashier says, "Of course," and, in a particularly generous mood, gives him a 50% discount. The old man says, "Danke," then leaves.